blacksmith?
Well, I was brought up just about half a mile away from the smithy, so I can't remember it not operating. But it was a gathering point for us children because we just loved to watch them shoeing horses and doing anything with the thing. We used to go into the blacksmiths and pump the air so that the fire would get burned brighter and brighter and brighter, and then the blacksmith would come along with his horseshoe that he was going to put on the horse, and he'd put it in the fire until it was red hot, and then he would take it and fit it onto the horse to see that it was right, and then of course he dipped it in the trough of water to cool it off quickly. And that went on. They had all kinds of horses, from earliest little ones to big draft horses and everything. And they would bend over, file the hoof until it was nice and smooth, and then they'd fit this hot shoe on and tack it on, and then nail it. And I can just see them standing with their back to the head and the foot drawn up underneath between their legs, hammering at the nails. And it wasn't only horseshoeing that they did all sorts of things. What would be welded in our day was done at the blacksmith shop by heating the what would you call it, the iron, and welding them together when they were red hot. So there was always a lot of activity in the blacksmith shop. What else can I say about it?
What, do you remember them making wheels?
Oh yes, they made all sorts of things. My grandfather even made barbed wire, which was recorded in that thing. And if there was any implement that had something broken, they'd take it along to the blacksmith shop, and it was mended there by either my Uncle George or Uncle Dan. Uncle Dan was the originator, having inherited the workshop from his father, and Uncle George was brought up he just lived a lot across the paddock from Uncle Dan, and he was really, would have been a very well-trained blacksmith. I don't know what else I could say about it.
What was Uncle Dan like as a man?
He was a very quiet-spoken, even-tempered man. He tolerated us children better than Uncle George did. But anyway, they were both very tolerant, really, because there was a group of children. There was Uncle George's children, and of course my brothers and sisters. And if there was any other children in the district, they all loved to go into the blacksmith shop and see the sparks flying, and it was a great entertainment. And we went there as often as we passed it. We always went in to have a look.
Did you go and see your aunties in the house too?
Oh yes, we were in and out. That was like a second home to us. We, Auntie Annie and Auntie Flo. Auntie Annie was the elder one, and she was a very quiet little lady, and always busy in the kitchen and doing the cooking and such like. Auntie Flo, by contrast, was very, very fond of her garden, and just loved to get out in the garden. And if my love of gardening was born with her, taken me as a child to see all the new things that were out in the garden. There'd be the first crocus or the first snowdrops or something that would be very special, and she'd have to introduce me to all these things and taught me to love the garden when I was very young.
Didn't she use some of the plants in the garden for healing and that sort of thing?
Well, I might not have been old enough to do that, to know that.
I thought she did some healing. She was...
Oh, she was very much the doctor and nurse for the district.
Yeah.
Yes, she was. Auntie Flo was. And she used to take us to the beach at Wilshire's Bay, and we used to go along the beach picking up white kelp. It was fine white pieces of kelp, and she took that home. It was called carrigan, and she made puddings with that. She boiled that in milk, brought it through the boil in the milk, and I suppose she'd sweeten it. I don't remember that, but when it cooled off, it set like a junket. Or yeah. So that's what if she took us to the beach, we used to have to gather up carrigan.
Do you remember any stories of your grandparents? The appearance?
No, I never knew my grandmother died in 1930 and I was born in 1919, and so I never knew my grandmother at all, and I don't remember Grandpa either. So those two were out as far as I was concerned.
Do you remember your parents telling you things about them though when you...
Oh yes, they told us if we got on about the old days, they'd tell us about Grandpa Parks and how he used to go at the weekends and preach at all the different districts that were within riding distance of him.
Was that Grandpa Parks or Grandpa McIntosh?
McIntosh. Yeah. I never knew my Grandpa Parks either because he died when, I don't know how old my mother was when he died, but he took ill at Pusica and was taken by boat round to Invercargill, and he must have died there. And Uncle Edward, there was no telephones and no way of communicating with Grandma to know how he was progressing. So he was probably dead before she knew it. It's terrible to think that they were so isolated. They had no ways except when the ship called in with supplies. But Uncle Edward, he set out to walk to Invercargill through bush and no planned roads, nothing, to find out about his father. So that was a very gallant thing he did.
So that would have been in the 1914, around 19, what year would that have been?
What year would it have been? I don't know.
It
probably is in the records that you've got.
Yeah.
Would be the year that he took ill. Then Uncle Edward sort of took over the lighthouse keeping in his father's place. So I suppose he had worked with his father in the lighthouse and knew the routine they had to do. But I don't know what else I could say about it.
When you say Uncle Edward, what generation was that?
He was
Alexander's...
my mother's oldest brother.
Okay.
See, there was Uncle Edward, Uncle Harry, and Uncle Arthur before there was any girls. And they were all older than my mother and Auntie Layla and Auntie Jessie.
So just back to the blacksmith and the Macintoshes, the on a Sunday obviously the house was the centre of where people would come and everything.
Yes, they had the morning meeting was held in the kitchen. It was really a living room, we'd say, of Longacre. and we went there from the time I can earliest memories of that time.
So what were your earliest memories as